Good afternoon. I'd like to give you a warm welcome to all of you. We meet the fourth Sunday of every month, and we hope to see you often. Today, I'm speaking to you from the Hudson Valley of New York, the land cherished by the Munsee, Lenape, and all week squirrels have been digging in our yard to find their stashes after the winter. Yesterday, I watched one digging in my hosta bed, and when their nose came up out of the bed, it was pitch black. And I realized yet another compassionate change that I need to make in my yard to stop using dyed mulch. I've been thinking a lot about the life that's emerging here on the tiny acre on which my husband and I and Bubbaji and Deacon live, and how I can best be in community with all the beings who live here. And so today I want to reflect a bit on thriving and growth in relation to this community as well, this community here at Compassion Consortium. Next month marks our 1-year anniversary of Sunday services. We've been delighted at how many of you have asked how you can officially become a member. And this month we rolled out our membership program. So in case some of you or any of you did not see the announcement, I'd like to take a moment to talk about why I think membership may be helpful, not only for the sustaining of this community and its growth, but also might provide you with some useful personal benefits. During my seminary years, I read a lot of fascinating research, about the benefits of religious or spiritual affiliation as part of my thesis on the intersection of spiritual values and animal issues. And this was fascinating to me because I was someone who was resisting affiliation of any sort at the time. For example, one study found that belonging to a religious or spiritual group increases one's commitment to volunteering and to charitable giving. Another study has shown that when you're a member in a group, that can increase your pro-sociality, which means your altruism or your cooperation or your caregiving. And other studies have revealed that people who belong to groups report higher levels of life satisfaction, greater personal happiness, and fewer negative psychosocial consequences, that's a mouthful, fewer negative psychosocial consequences of traumatic life events. And it's that last one that I want to focus in on today. Many of us who are animal lovers or animal advocates or activists often report high levels of compassion fatigue, of secondary trauma, of cognitive dissonance, moral injury, or a salad of all of those. And there's some fascinating research that says that spiritual practices and the support of a community can help us mitigate the response that we can have when we're exposed to the trauma of others, including animal others. One of my favorite people researching in this field right now is Laura Vandernoot-Lipsky. In her book, Trauma Stewardship, an Everyday Guide to Caring for Self While Caring for Others, she identifies 16 different warning signs that signal we might be experiencing trauma exposure response. So I want to read those aloud to you, and I want you to think about whether any of them hit home. Are you feeling them now? Have you felt them before? Do they resonate? Here we go. Feeling helpless and hopeless, feeling a sense that one can never do enough, hypervigilance, diminished creativity, the inability to embrace complexity. That's when we get into right, wrong, black, white, yes, no kind of thinking. Minimizing. Oh, it's not that bad, I can take it. Chronic exhaustion or physical ailments. The inability to listen or deliberate avoidance. Don't tell me I can't take anymore. Dissociative moments. Those are the times when, you kind of find yourself floating above yourself, watching something happening, but you're not quite in your body. A sense of persecution, that folks don't get you, or they might be out to get you. Guilt, fear, anger, cynicism, the inability to empathize, or numbing. Numbing is when you get on the sofa and watch Netflix for 6 hours. Or addictions, that's when you get on the sofa and watch Netflix for 6 hours while eating 3 tubs of Ben & Jerry's non-dairy ice cream. Or grandiosity, That's the inflated sense of importance related to one's work. That's the, if I don't do it, no one else will. We may feel some of these on a daily basis. They may come and go as we get periods of work, periods of rest. But Laura suggests that we need to take a frame of trauma stewardship around our work. It means that we reflect on the wholeness of what we're doing, understanding why we come to this work, how we're affected by it, how we make sense of it, how we learn from our experiences. It means that we don't suck it up. We don't prove how strong we are. It means that we can recognize that this work can be heartbreaking and lonely and frustrating. And so we keep an inquiry open about our work, and we recognize our capacity and our need to rest and restore from it. So that's one of the fine balances that we try to keep here in our Sunday services. How do we talk about the important work that we're all doing in ways that don't activate ourselves or activate others so that we can rest and restore and rejuvenate? What level of specificity is useful when we're talking about violence and exploitation? Or when should we generalize for our collective mental well-being, knowing that we don't need to preach the details to the choir? We don't have a choir yet, but that's a note to self. Can we recognize that our community has different capacities on any given day for how much heartbreak we can take in? And perhaps most importantly, can we make sure that we include wonder and laughter and joy here? Like the cheeky song I subjected you all to about whale poop last month, or the techno dance hits that Erica picks for us to end our service with so we can leave on an up note. Vandernoot Lipsky in her book suggests that social support is essential to managing compassion fatigue, as is a daily centering practice. And we here at the Consortium obviously agree. That's why each service we engage in multiple practices, and we will today, grounded in mindfulness and meditation, prayer, and Shinrin Yoku, and whatever else we come up with for a service. Our hope is that you take these away and you integrate them into your life and that they're helpful to you. And with our new membership offerings, we want to kick that up a notch. We want to support you in deepening your spiritual life. And in return, have you help us deepen our ability to grow the work that this community is doing. So here's how it works. For those of you who would still just like to continue to attend the services and events, that's just fine. You can continue to do that free of charge, or make a donation when you register for the service, or click on the donation link at the end of the service if you'd like. We really appreciate that. For those of you who want to commit to being a member of a community, who want to have a spiritual home here, you can sign up to become what we're calling a belonging member. That gives you access to a private online platform we're developing so you can connect to each other and network and support each other throughout the month. And you'll also get an invitation to an annual members event where we'll celebrate what's gone on during the year and celebrate our joys. In return, you'll donate $5 each month, or as I like to say, you'll skip one overpriced latte. You just sign up once on the website and it happens by recurring donation. For those of you who want to deepen your spiritual life and your ties to other people in this community more deeply, we'd like you to consider becoming what we're calling an engaged member. In addition to coming to the annual members event, if you'd like, and the online networking platform, you'll also get a monthly spiritual reflection email, and you'll be invited to join us on the third Monday of each month at 8 p.m. Eastern for what we're calling the practice circle. We'll spend 30 or 45 minutes engaged deeply together in spiritual practices, and then followed by a little time to unpack that and talk about how do you use that practice in your daily life to combat compassion fatigue and other things that weigh heavily on us, and to encourage deeper spiritual connections. The sessions will be sent out on video replay in case you can't attend at that time or life intervenes, and you'll forgo a couple of lattes. We've set that at $25 donation per month on a recurring donation. And finally, if you'd like to become a sustaining member and have input on programming with us and help pay operational costs, you can contact us. We can talk to you about that too. We're excited about the potential of these new programs. We've created them based on what you've asked us for, and we hope that they'll be useful to some of you. If they aren't, as I said, We still hope you will join us every fourth Sunday of the month here, as well as for our book and film events, which will remain free of charge. You can reach out to us at compassionconsortium@gmail.com with any questions. And in closing, I want to thank all of you for everything you've done this past year to help this consortium thrive. And based on Phil's background today, I'm going to add, thank you for helping us live long and prosper. Over to you, William.
Okay, so now is the time when we read our Tenets of Agreement. Most of you are probably familiar with them. They're on our website, and we always start each meeting with the reading of the tenets. They're extremely important to us. They are basically the fundamental principles upon which the Compassion Consortium is based. So it occurred to us that we have a different reader every month, but we've never asked Phil DeJean to read the tenets. And you may have noticed Phil, he's that very handsome young man who kind of runs the place. And so I need to introduce Phil. Now, what do I say about Phil? Where would I begin? Phil DeJean, he's a dedicated school teacher. He's a committed vegan. He is a Zoom Master Supreme, and that's in all capital letters. He's a spiritual person. He's my friend, and he's a great guy to know. And before I ask him to read the tenets, I just want to ask Erica and Victoria and Sarah, do you have any praise that you want to heap on Phil before he reads, or can we just go ahead?
Now I have something. Whenever you call Phil and there's a disaster going on, technological or otherwise, he will always say, now let's first bring God into this.
Thank you. Yes, and that's absolutely true. So, Phil, we're going to turn it over to you and ask you to read the Tenets of Agreement for the Compassion Consortium. Take it away, Phil.
Right on. All right, I'm going to share the screen. Here we go. All right, our Tenets of Agreement. We acknowledge a divine force at the heart of the universe, and in all living beings. We may refer to this force as God, but it is known by many names and appears in different forms or as formless. We recognize the common moral principles inherent within all wisdom traditions. We affirm that compassion, reverence for life, and nonviolence are fundamental to religious faith and moral philosophy and are to be extended to all sentient beings. We stand by the principles of inclusion, diversity, equality, and hold these as essential in our human relations. We hold that non-human animals are imbued with the same essence of life and love as our human animals, and that there is moral parity between us. We avow that humans do not own the earth, its resources, or its inhabitants, but instead must be involved in their protection and care. We endeavor to eat and live in a kind and sustainable manner, moving away from animal foods and animal-derived clothing, as well as any activities that cause harm to our fellow beings, human or otherwise. We aim to provide spiritual comfort, fellowship, and food for thought to those practicing or exploring a vegan lifestyle. We offer guidance and peer support for all those seeking a more compassionate and spiritual life. We commit to sharing these principles freely with humility and respect in support of non-human animals and the earth. I am honored to be asked to do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Phil.
Let's just take a minute to breathe that in, how that made you feel inside listening to it. Just take a breath and anchor that in your body. So we're going to do a little spiritual practice together today, as we always do at this point in our service. And if you've been with us for a while, we always change up our spiritual practice just to honor multiple doorways into the great mystery. And today we're going to be doing a practice that is taken from Reverend Sarah Bowen's brand new book, Sacred Send-Offs. This is a big month for Rev Sarah. This book is launching in April, and this book is all about her work as an animal chaplain and a lot of practical knowledge and suggestions for how you too can be involved in surviving animal loss, making life meaningful, and healing the planet. So there's a beautiful practice in this book, one of many that Rev Sarah offers in her work as an animal chaplain, that we'll be practicing with today. And it's going to be a written reflection. So before everyone jumps up to get pens and pencils, I promise you will have time to do that. Let me just explain what we'll be doing, and then we'll open up some sacred space, and you'll have time to go pick up, if you need to go get a piece of paper and something to write with, you'll have time to do that. So the writing prompt for today, and I'll write it in the chat as well. You're going to be invited to write a letter or message to a being that you have words unsaid. Write a letter to a being that you have words unsaid. And as you know, this is an interspecies practice. So this being that you write to very well may be a non-human being, and that is very well encouraged and invited. So whatever you feel inspired to do here, for the next about 6 minutes, we're going to be writing a letter to a being that you have words unsaid. And we will do this to the beautiful accompaniment of some sounds from the other than human world. Two more minutes to bring your letter to the beloved that you are writing to a close. About 2 more minutes to wrap up. So as you begin to bring this writing process to a close, I'm just going to invite you for a moment to, if you feel comfortable closing your eyes, just really bring into your heart this being that you just wrote this beautiful passage to. Just bring that being right into your heart and feel their presence. And feel these words that you just wrote being delivered into their heart, from your heart to their heart. Just seeing those and experiencing those words landing for this being. I know that those words are heard and know that they're received. And if there's any gesture that feels right for you to bring this process to a close, maybe it be a bow or a gesture of gratitude or something to acknowledge this being that you just sent your love to, go ahead and do something that feels right for you to close this practice together. And I thank you all for practicing with us today as I introduce Victoria and our special guest interview for today. Take it away, Victoria.
Hey, everybody, that was a heavy practice with which to go into an interview. And it's also really interesting to me that we did a writing meditation on this day when we're going to be talking with someone who is a wonderful writer herself and someone who has made it possible for the writings of many, many other people, including myself, to be out in the world. So I am so very grateful that today we're going to be talking with not only somebody that I admire immensely, but somebody to whom I feel I owe really all my work in the world. So any good that I have ever done or am able to do would not have happened were it not for Patti Breitman. So I'm just tickled to introduce you to one of my favorite people on earth. Welcome from maybe sunny Northern California, Patti Breitman.
Okay, I'm happy to do this only by audio.
Okay, wonderful. Well, and that is so you, because you are a genuinely humble person, and that's part of what's cool about you. So tell us how your vegan journey began.
Ooh, my vegan journey began when I was the editor at Warner Books in New York City back in 1984 or 5 of a book called Fit for Life by Harvey and Marilyn Diamond. And what Harvey said in that book, I'll never forget, he said, if you put a baby in a crib with an apple and a rabbit, if the baby eats the rabbit and plays with the apple, I'll buy you a new car. And he made me realize that naturally we are inclined to love and take care of animals and to eat beautiful fruit. So that got me started. And then when I moved to California, 2 years after that, in 1986, everyone said, why are you still eating dairy? Why are you still eating eggs? And I said, oh my God, I made the largest change of my life. I pissed off my family and friends. I can't believe it's not enough. Why should I give up eggs and dairy? And then I read John Robbins' book, Diet for a New America. And within 24 hours, I gave up milk and dairy, and I've never gone back.
That's beautiful. So your initial entree into this was through a health book and the health message. And sometimes there's a conflict, ethical vegans and health vegans or plant-based people. So how can we all just love each other up and be one wonderful movement that helps everybody?
Well, Victoria, you're my champion in that field because I get involved in the politics among vegans about all of the lab meat, lab-grown meat, and techno meat that's made in a factory. And you keep my head on straight by reminding me when all of that comes up and all the two camps get their boxing gloves on and say, that's not natural, that's not real, that's not good for us. That you remind us that it's all about the animals, it's not about us. And if it saves animal lives and people want to buy the techno food or they want to buy the non-GMO safe foods and they want to buy all the new stuff, it's still helping animals. So keeping that perspective is what, oh, there I am.
There you
now
are.
I see my video. Anyway, you remind me to keep the larger picture and to always think of the animals.
Well, I could say the same thing about you. So since we are a spiritual center, let's talk about religion. When I met you, you were Jewish and you still are, but now you are also Buddhist. So how do you honor both and practice both?
It's interesting that the people who brought Buddhism to the West are primarily, the vast majority of those who brought it to the West in the 60s and 70s are Jewish. Their names are Sylvia Boorstein, Jack Kornfield. I can't remember all. Anyway, dozens of Jewish people found an affinity with Buddhism, and I understand why, because both religions encourage us to ask questions, not to take on faith what somebody else told us. Jews are famous for always exploring why and looking at all the rabbis arguing all the points, and Jewish families can argue forever the same points. And Buddhism says, don't believe anybody, see if it works for you. Be your own best teacher. The Buddha tried to teach principles of living ethically, and he said, don't take my word for it. See if it improves your life if you follow my advice. So I think those two religions are very compatible. And I really don't think of myself as a Buddhist. Someone who follows the Buddhist teachings. I guess that's called a Buddhist, but I don't think there's a religion. I think of it more as a guideline for how to live one's life ethically.
So how do you do this? Tell us about your spiritual life and your spiritual practice.
I belong to a wonderful Sangha, which is a group of people like you, like the Compassion Consortium, a beautiful group of people who meet once a week to learn more about the Buddhist teachings. That's the Marin Sangha. Some of my friends from that Sangha are on today's call. And that is a beautiful way to stay connected in community and to learn more about the Buddhist teachings. And I have a daily practice of meditation, which started with transcendental meditation back in the 70s. But since I discovered the Buddhist path, has changed to what's called insight meditation. And I do that almost every day. As far as Judaism goes, it's more of a cultural thing in that I still eat my grandmother's food. I celebrate most of the major Jewish religions. I consider myself Jewish. And whenever my relatives has a bat mitzvah, bar mitzvah, or a wedding, I love partaking in the celebrations that are traditionally Jewish. The prayers and the dancing and the singing and the crushing of the glass. I just love all the traditions that go with Judaism.
That's beautiful. So tell me, Patti, how all of this, both of these religions and everything else you've been picking up along the way, how does this coincide with veganism? Is the veganism separate or is it inherent in your spirituality?
Definitely inherent. And it breaks my heart that the mainstream components of both religions don't embrace it the way I would hope they would. That's why I love Compassion Consortium. And that's why I started Dharma Voices for Animals. The Dharma is what the Buddha taught. It's like, I was going to say it's like the Torah, but that's a bad analogy. Anyway, so many Buddha's students and teachers talk about non-harming and ahimsa, but they don't really take that into their lives with what's on their plates. So Dharma Voices for Animals puts that front and center and says, if you're going to follow the Dharma, you really ought to consider how you live in terms of consumerism, eating and clothing and animal entertainment and all the other ways we abuse animals without realizing it's animal abuse. So in Judaism also, thank goodness for Jewish Veg. I think someone from Jewish Veg is on this call. It's just a marvelous organization where people who are Jewish can feel like they're heard and can feel like what's most important in acting like a Jew and being moral and being kind to animals is front and forward. I have to say, my introduction to Judaism that first touched my heart wasn't my Sunday school, it wasn't my family, it wasn't my bat mitzvah. It was when I went to summer camp. And at summer camp, we read a book called Camp Ki Tov. And that book had a little chapter about someone who found a bird who had fallen and wanted to save the bird. And it was my introduction to compassion through a Jewish lens. And anyway, that has lasted all these years.
I'm glad you went to summer camp. So tell us a little bit. I know we've had Dharma Voices for Animals as part of the consortium. We did a film night with this wonderful organization. And if anybody missed that and wants to see it, it is on the YouTube channel for Compassion Consortium. But Patti, tell us as a co-founder what Dharma Voices for Animals stands for.
we try to bring the message of the Buddha into the lives of people in a broader sense, so that people who say that they're Buddhist can understand that that does include their food choices, and it does include their lifestyle choices. And much to my surprise and delight, the organization has been very effective in Asia, of all places, where there are countries that are officially by charter are Buddhist countries. And we're in the Sunday schools now, and we're teaching. Dharma Voices for Animals is teaching people all through Thailand and Sri Lanka and other Buddhist countries about how and why to eat a vegan diet. It's very exciting to me. The numbers are just enormous. And we're trying also to get the Western American centers to understand that what we offer people who go on retreat really should reflect the teachings more in alignment, and more teachers are joining us. So that's very satisfying.
Can you explain just a little bit about what happened with Buddhism? My understanding is that the kind of Buddhism that went north took the vegetarian teachings with it, and the ones that went south largely didn't. What happened there?
I wish I understood that better, Victoria. I'm sorry, I don't. I know that Theravadan Buddhism is less into the vegan message than Mahayana Buddhism, but that's as far as my knowledge goes. I'm not a Buddhist scholar, and I really don't know how to answer that geographically about what happened and where the split was. I just know of those two schools, and there are many. The Mahayanans follow a vegan diet and the Theravadins don't. And what took off in the West at the two major centers on the East Coast and West Coast is Theravadan Buddhism.
We love our meat. As Westerners. Okay, so let's talk a little bit, Patti, in a practical way, because I think it was Stephen Gaskin that said that if your religion doesn't work in the here and now, then it's not much of a religion. So you've been very successful in the world you're an author, and as a literary agent, you represented some of the most successful nonfiction authors, and in a few cases, the most successful nonfiction authors of the late 20th century. So you did the whole make it in the world, check that off the bucket list. So once you've done that, then what do you do with your life? What's left?
Oh, that's a big question. I think what's left is what was there all along, but you can put a spotlight on it and spend more energy on it, is trying to be kind and to model kindness, trying to be non-harming. And what I love about the precepts of Buddhism are that they try to make the world a safer place by making yourself a safe being for other beings. No creature should tremble in fear in your presence. Every creature on earth should find safety in your presence. And that's how I feel. You don't have to do anything in the world so much as be a model of that. And that's what I'm hearing now from all the wisest teachers regarding this horrible war that's going on in Europe. There's very little we can do to affect the path of that war, but the more of us who embody peace in our hearts, embody love in our hearts, embody non-harming in our lives, there are ripple effects to that. And the people we come in contact with and the people they come in contact with and so on, that peace and that love is contagious and spreads like a ripple. So I think I spend as much energy as I can on trying to be kind. That's the only way I can say it.
What a beautiful phrase. That's a tweet. I spend as much energy as I can trying to be kind. Thank you, Patti.
Thank you. Speaking of tweets, I want to apologize to everyone who's ever tried to get in touch with me by Facebook or LinkedIn or anything. As you can tell from having lost my video on this call, I am techno challenged. And so I do not do social media. And when I've tried to do it, I don't do it well. So I have, I think, 72 requests to be people's friends on Facebook that I've never answered because I don't know how. And I choose not to because I've heard Facebook and I really take a lot of time away from whatever else you want to do. And even though I joined LinkedIn at first, I haven't been active on it. So I have more than 20 requests there for people that want to be linked to me. And I don't know how to do it. So apologies to anyone who's on this call who's tried to contact me through social media. I'm just not good at it. And I'm sorry.
Yeah, but you have a newsletter, right?
I do write a monthly newsletter for Marin Veg. Anybody who wants it can simply write to Marindedge.org is the website, or you can write to me personally at eatplants@gmail.com. eatplants@gmail.com.
And I'm sure one of our founders who is good at tech will have that up on the chat. So Patti, I remember once when one of your own books was getting a whole lot of press and you were all over the media and you were running around being all, stellar. And I was in awe. And you said, the dreams of my former life are coming true. And I don't think I have ever heard the spiritual life described so succinctly. So tell us what it is to have a former life and maybe a more uplifted life.
I think when I worked in publishing, I had a little bit of jealousy of all the authors that I worked with as an editor, or as before that as a publicist. I helped other people get their books out there in the world. And I had a little bit of jealousy. And when I finally wrote a book and it got some attention, I realized there was nothing to be jealous of. It's not about the fame. It's not about the attention. It's not about having a book. The message of the book is what I want to get out, not the fact of having written a book. And it doesn't matter if I wrote it or someone else wrote it. I would work to get that message out. So I was delighted to promote other people's books if the message was worthy. And then when I had my own, I was just another messenger, but it wasn't about the messenger, it's about the message. So that's how I see it. It's about getting the word out, not about whose mouth is getting the word out.
Like I said, the spiritual life succinctly described. So I know, Patti, that for ages, and we met in 1989, but I'm talking even way before that, you have been a social justice warrior. You've been out there for so many causes, but it seems that now and for the last several decades, it's been veganism and animal rights that's your primary cause in this world. So why?
Well, that covers all the other social justice issues. I think veganism and animal rights really cover everything, because it's looking at the realization there is no other. If we can see animals as the same as us, we can see other people the same as us. We can see trees and squirrels and pigeons the same as us. Even when they make a mess of our laptop computers by landing on the two of it. Anyway, I think veganism and animal rights just covers everything. It shows the connection, and connection is all there is. We can feel when we recognize that connection, everything makes sense. Well, actually, nothing makes sense. When you feel the connection, the things happening in the world make no sense. So that's why I think working toward fostering that connection and strengthening that connection really is something worthwhile. I don't know if I'm answering your question. I'm just rattling on. But
You're just brilliant. You're brilliantly Buddhistic. I hope that we can pull out some of these quotes and put them all sorts of places. So Patti, if you were in charge of how people should live, how should people live?
People should live, I'm just repeating myself, with kindness at the heart of everything they do. That's all. I mean, it boils down to that. People should live without harming other beings, without causing, to the best of their ability, to think about how will this affect the creature I'm interacting with. And what the Buddha said that I loved is you don't have to do it perfectly. You can ask yourself before you take action if it's going to harm anybody. You can ask yourself while you're doing it, is this harming anybody? And you can ask yourself afterwards, did this harm anybody? So you get 3 choices, 3 chances to make the right choice. And if it comes to, yes, it did harm somebody, you can show remorse and promise not to do it again. So I think just being conscious of the effect we have on other beings helps us make the wisest choice in any situation. So we should become more conscious of how we affect our own minds and other creatures.
So in our last minute, you were so integral to the whole kind of surge of self-help back in the 1980s and 90s that, that kind of spawned Oprah and Super Soul Sunday and all these things that we just accept now. And in that message, there was always this look out for number one, really take care of yourself. You can't take care of anybody else till you're taking care of yourself. And yet, as you explain Buddhist teachings and the way you're seeing life now, if we take care of others, we are taking care of ourselves. What do you do with that?
I think they're both true. I think it's still true. You have to take care of yourself. I mean, you still need a spa day. You still need to take a warm bath and drink tea, give yourself a break. You still need to be kind to yourself and take care of yourself in order to take care of others. You will burn out if you only take care of others. So they're both true. I don't think there's a contradiction there.
Well, Patti, I think you are the least contradictory person I have ever met. And I just want to share with everybody that I met Patti at an American Vegan Society conference so far up in Northern California, it was almost Oregon in 1989. And there was all this scuttlebutt. There's a literary agent here. There's a literary agent here. It was sort of like Brad Pitt's over there and Angelina Jolie's over there. And so when I met Patti, I was expecting somebody who would be arrogant and dismissive. And instead, I met this amazing woman that you see before you today. And it was one of the best days of my life. So thank you, Patti, and passing it on, Reverend Erica.
Thank you. And Patti, you may say you're not good at tech, but your email address is eatplants@gmail.com. Like, that's the dream email. You must have beat everybody to the starting line to get that. So I don't believe you that you're not tech savvy. You know how to get the best email address out there. I'm just going to say that. So this is the time. We've been sitting for almost an hour. This is the time to check in with this temple that we all inhabit, our bodies, see what it needs, see what it's asking for. I have a few fun stretches today that are actually inspired by this beautiful graphic on the front of Rev Sarah's book. I was looking at the pelican with a wide open mouth, and I was thinking, if you're brave like me and you're willing to look like a goofball on the screen, go ahead and stretch your mouth as wide open as you can. Stretch that out. And then the tiger, let your hands just stretch as far as they can. Stretch out. And then just anything else that's calling for you. Maybe some shoulder rolls, some neck rolls, whatever else is calling to you to feel these beautiful bodies and keep them energized and keep them comfortable. All right, so I'm excited to bring to you our Compassion in Action segment. This is when we highlight a member of our community who is they're just living compassion in their daily lives by how they do it, how they move, how they live. And today I want to introduce you to Debbie Phillips. Debbie Phillips is a shamanic Reiki worldwide certified master teacher, a yoga teacher, a One Spirit interfaith ministry candidate, a master herpetologist, and a state licensed wildlife rehabilitator who specializes in injured freshwater turtles. She followed her spiritual call from a turtle guide to serve the earth, and she founded something called the Dancing Turtle Rescue, which is a nonprofit dedicated to saving turtles and their habitats. And my favorite part of her bio is that she can't stop bringing home turtles. So welcome, Debbie. Just give us a wave for right now. We want to actually show your video for a minute here, just so that we can get a peek into your animal rescue. So go ahead, Phyllis, show us this beautiful operation in action.
At Dancing Turtle Rescue, we dream of a world where wetlands are abundant, where turtles and all life can thrive. We recognize that all beings are interconnected, and the ideals of justice, inclusion, and well-being extend beyond the human species. Whether we are caring for injured native freshwater turtles, hatching eggs that would have otherwise been lost, sheltering abandoned and neglected pets, or advocating for the protection of our beloved turtles and their wetland habitats, our mission is to save turtles and their homes. In our wildlife rehabilitation program, Our licensed rehabbers provide first aid and long-term care to turtles hit by cars, hooked on fishing gear, or chewed on by dogs. Some turtles take a year or more to recover. We house and feed our turtle patients for as long as they need to heal. Our rescue program takes in unwanted, neglected, or abandoned captive-bred pet turtles. Some are injured or ill when they arrive. We work with potential adopters to find good homes for our rescues, but those who are not good candidates for rehoming become forever residents. We hope, with help from our supporters, to create a sanctuary for them where they can live out the remainder of their lives knowing nothing but love from humans. Every day we bear witness to the devastating impacts of human activity on our planet in the microcosm of a turtle's life. Some of the vehicle strike wounds we see are horrific. We care for some of the most misunderstood and vilified species in our region. But we treat, comfort, and protect each one with compassion and respect. And we are out there all the time, sharing our love for turtles. In our educational outreach program, we cultivate understanding of and appreciation for the mysterious turtle beings. With our educational ambassadors, we demonstrate safe interactions with wildlife, encourage exploration of the outdoors, and promote the value of biodiversity. At Dancing Turtle Rescue, we dream of a world where all turtles are healthy and safe, and all life can thrive.
And that is such a well done video too. Thank you for that. So the 2 minutes we have left to get to know you a little bit better, I'm just so curious, how did these mysterious, beautiful beings capture your heart?
Like I said, I was led by a turtle guide. So in my very first shamanic journey, that was the guide that showed up. And over the course of many years, I had them keep coming into my life in various ways until one physically came into my life. And then I discovered wildlife rehabilitation actually through my shamanic work, because I found that when animals showed up for me as guides, that I wanted to know not just like what the internet said was their, totem meeting or whatever, but I wanted to know what it was like for them. What was their natural history? What are their challenges? And as I got to know turtles, I also stumbled across wildlife rehabilitation in my research, and that's what led me to it.
Beautiful. And the last question I'll ask you is, knowing that you are a seminary student, you're going to be ordained, I believe, at the end of this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you see, how does this align, or is this related to what you see as your ministry? Are those connected in some way?
It is very much. I wasn't sure when I started seminary, but it has come together very, very much. So part of my work with running the rescue is giving back to the earth. And that is very much a spiritual practice for me. And the other piece is just, I have found so much awe, so much inspiration and wonder from turtles and the whole natural world, that is really what I want to bring to people through my ministry. So it definitely comes together.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for being a shining example of compassion in action. In the chat, I'm going to put Debbie's website if you'd like to learn more about her turtle rescue. And Debbie, thank you so much for joining us today. Rev Sarah, over to you for some inspiration and prayers.
Thank you. So to build on the practice that Erica led us through with paper, and to build on Debbie's turtles and all of that water, we're going to do a practice today that has to do with both paper and water. And I'm going to ask Phil to go ahead and open the chat right now. And I'll let you all know this is a little different than we've done in other weeks. We're going to mix it up a little today. and give you a little opening thoughts and then ask you to share some things into the chat. For ages, humans have involved water in our lives and in our spirituality. Water permeates our oldest religious narratives, from the God-mating waters of the Babylonians to the creation stories of the Abrahamic traditions. Water is everywhere. Before we could be formed from the earth was formed from the waters in many traditions. Our ancestors looked to water for wisdom in the sacred springs of Delphi, or they went on pilgrimage to holy rivers. They created rituals for purification like baptism or mikvah, and they made transformations that have been handed down from generation to generation, remarkably many of them unchanged. As modern spiritual seekers, we've added our own practices and rituals. We might soak in hot springs or go to a sensory deprivation tank or surf in rolling waves as part of our spirituality. Water purifies and it refreshes and it makes the here and now sacred. So today, what I'm going to invite us to do is to dissolve our challenges, the challenges to compassion in the world, the things that we would like removed, into water. We're going to do this with the help of a little bowl of water here and magic paper, dissolving paper, one of the other rituals I like to do. So I'm going to ask you to put into the chat things you would like to see removed from the world, barriers to compassion. I'm going to start with war, food injustice, violence. What else would we like to dissolve or remove from this world? Ecological destruction, greed, hatred, racism, aggression towards veganism, animal exploitation, animal labs, murder, slaughterhouses, delusion, child abuse. Another one for war, fear, abuse of any kind, complacency, greed, prejudice, hatred, human desire to, the desire to eat animals, rejecting each other, oppression. Oh, friends, I'm going to need a bigger piece of paper. Animal agriculture, speciesism. Yeah, let's hit the isms. Sexism, racism, classism, water privatization, religious intolerance, poverty, hunger, factory farming, fossil fuel economy, homelessness, denial of climate change. Whew. Anyone have compassion fatigue on this list? Wow, it's a lot of work we're doing out there. Chained up dogs. Yeah. I'll add anyone forced to breed against their will. Eyes wide shut. Human trafficking. There's a perfect large one, big letters right across all of this. Everything that is not love. All right, folks. I'll add a ... as I always do to represent anything that still might come in as I'm doing this. We will take this list, this mess, this absolute mess that we live in, and place it in this water for purification, for transformation, to be dissolved. If you guys can see this, all of the letters being removed from the paper. It's still a little messy, but a little more manageable, isn't it? This is my hope. This might be many of our hopes today. A baptism there for the world. Phil, could you bring up our last slide so we could end this with some words together? If you would all like to speak these words of intention with me. May all creatures everywhere be happy and free. May the thoughts, words, and actions of our lives contribute to this happiness and this freedom for all. May it be so. Amen. 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 Ashe. So mote it be, and so it is. And if I missed your word, feel free to add it in there. William, over to you.
Unmute. Okay, that's the hardest thing in my life to unmute. Okay, so I want to thank you. All of us want to thank you for joining us today. And right now I'm going to let you know about some upcoming events before our closing song, which by today is going to be a fantastic closing song. And then we'll have our fellowship time. So on April 24th at our Sunday service, we'll be joined by Chris Gerkness, who is a vegan Wiccan living in Salem, Massachusetts. So it seems to me that if you're a Wiccan, which Salem, Massachusetts is where you should live. And that's exactly where she lives. She's going to help us celebrate the Ostera spring equinox. So Chris is a natural intuitive and a magical herbal practitioner. She was an officer in the Air Force, earned an MBA at Boston University and an MS in herbal medicine at the American College of Healthcare Sciences. And she completed an herbalism apprenticeship at the Boston School of Herbal Studies. So Chris enjoys spreading her knowledge by teaching herbalism, tarot, and intuitive development workshops around the country. So I hope you will join us. I think this is going to be very, very interesting. And if you want to learn more about Chris, you can visit her website, which I think is in the chat, www.darkmoontarotsalem.com. So that's April 24th. And then, actually, before that, on April 12th, did we mention that Reverend Sarah has a new book? Well, in case we forgot to mention that, on April 12th, I hope you will join us because you can learn a lot more about Sarah's book, Sacred Send-Offs, an Animal Chaplain's Advice for Surviving Animal Loss, Making Life Meaningful and Healing the Planet. So this book explores human relationships with beloved pets and also wild creatures, animal astronauts, marine life, farmed animals, and other sentient beings. And along the way, Sarah shares insights for sustaining lives, honoring deaths, and managing the emotions that arise when we lose an animal we love. So I hope you will join us. I think this is going to be a terrific night, April 12th at 8 p.m. EDT. So let's see. Now it's time for me to once again remind you that if you enjoyed the service and would like to support future Compassion Consortium programming, we encourage you to donate on our website, and the link is posted. And donations may be made both via PayPal and most credit and debit cards. And then lastly, please don't forget to check out our new membership options. All the details are on our website at compassionconsortium.org/membership. And this, as Sarah said, this is purely optional for those who want to participate in the additional activities available to members. And you can contact us at compassionconsortium@gmail.com if you have any questions or want more information or want to discuss anything about our membership program. So I think that is the end of what I have to say. And we are now moving on to Sarah again.
Thank you so much for joining us today at the Compassion Consortium.